Today is day 124 of our 365-day Bible read. Today, from the Old Testament, we're going to be reading 1 Kings chapters 6 and 7, and then we'll do the Bible study for 1 Kings chapters 6 and 7. And then we'll go on over to the New Testament and we will read Luke. We're going to finish Luke chapter 23 by reading verse 26 through 56. And then we'll do the Bible study for Luke chapter 23. Also, we only have one chapter left of the book of Luke, and but we're gonna read it over the course of 2 days. So starting tomorrow, we'll start Luke chapter 24, and that'll be the last chapter of the book of Luke. But we're gonna be reading Luke 24 for 2 days. So we split up the chapters of the New Testament up into 2 days. So, yes, so that's exciting. So, we'll soon be starting a new book of the Bible. We'll be starting the book of John. Wait, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Yep, we'll be starting the book of John after the book of Luke, after we finish Luke in 2 more days. So, that's exciting. But okay, so we're gonna get started now from the Old Testament. We're going to start with 1 Kings chapter 6. And let's see, let me look over this. 1 Kings chapter 7 is a little bit lengthy. Okay, so we're starting 1 Kings chapter 6. Hello, you who have joined. How are you? Got you before I got off the computer. Hi, I'm fine. I'm blessed. God is good. God is so good. Getting through. So coming on here late, and we're gonna get started with this. So thank you for joining tonight, and blessings to you and your soul and your life and everything. And yeah, blessings to you. So yes, thanks for joining. I know you said you're getting ready to get off the computer, but okay, have a good night. But thanks for, dropping in, even though I'm just now getting ready to start. So if you do stay a little while, stay a little while. Thanks. But if not, I understand. So, okay, I'm gonna get started though, but blessings to you, and thank you for being a part of this journey with me. Like, thank you for you. So this is a big deal, and reading the Bible daily, like I've never done this in my entire life, and but reading through the entire Bible, this is like this is everything. And it's been almost 125 days, and we've been opening the Bible every single day and reading. That's like beautiful. Even through, I had COVID, I just got over COVID. So we were opening this Bible and reading. I'm going to be giving birth at the end of this year, but I'll be in the hospital, and we're going to open this Bible and we're going to read. So, we're reading through every day, no matter what. So I'm getting ready to go on vacation too. I'm going to be getting up and reading this Bible. So no matter what. So we're doing it. So I'm excited for you on this journey too, and everything that you're doing in your life. So blessings to you. Blessings to you. I'm going to get started. All right. 1 Kings chapter 6. Solomon builds the temple. In the 418th year after the people of Israel came out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Ziv, which is the 2nd month, he began to build the house of the Lord. The house that King Solomon built for the Lord was 60 cubits long, 20 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. The vestibule in front of the nave of the house was 20 cubits long, equal to the width of the house, and 10 cubits deep in front of the house. And he made for the house windows the recessed frames. He also built a structure against the wall of the house, running around the walls of the house, both the nave and the inner sanctuary. And he made side chambers all around. The lowest story was 5 cubits broad. The middle one was 6 cubits broad, and the third was 7 cubits broad. For around the outside of the house, he made offsets on the wall in order that the supporting beams should not be inserted into the walls of the house. When the house was built, it was with stone prepared at the quarry, so that neither hammer nor axe nor any tool of iron was heard in the house while it was being built. The entrance for the lowest story was on the south side of the house, and one went up by stairs to the middle story, and from the middle story to the third. So he built the house and finished it, and he made the ceiling of the house of beams and planks of cedar. He built the structure against the whole house 5 cubits high, and it was joined to the house with timbers of cedar. Now, the word of the Lord came to Solomon concerning this house that you are building. If you will walk in my statutes and obey my rules and keep all my commandments and walk in them, then I will establish my word with you, which I spoke to David your father. And I will dwell among the children of Israel and will not forsake my people Israel. So Solomon built the house and finished it. He lined the walls of the house on the inside with boards of cedar. From the floor of the house to the walls of the ceiling, he covered them on the inside with wood. And he covered the floor of the house with boards of cypress. He built 20 cubits of the rear of the house with boards of cedar from the floor to the walls, and he built this within as an inner sanctuary as the most holy place. The house, that is, the nave in front of the inner sanctuary, was 40 cubits long. The cedar within the house was carved in the form of gourds and open flowers. All was cedar. No stone was seen. The inner sanctuary he prepared in the innermost part of the house to set there the ark of the covenant of the Lord. The inner sanctuary was 20 cubits long, 20 cubits wide, and 20 cubits high, and he overlaid it with pure gold. He also overlaid an altar of cedar. And Solomon overlaid the inside of the house with pure gold, and he drew chains of gold across in front of the inner sanctuary, and overlaid it with gold. And he overlaid the whole house with gold until all the house was finished. Also, the whole altar that belonged to the inner sanctuary he overlaid with gold. In the inner sanctuary he made 2 cherubim of olive wood, each 10 cubits high. 5 cubits was the length of one wing of the cherub, and 5 cubits the length of the other wing of the cherub. It was 10 cubits from the tip of the one wing to the tip of the other. The other cherub also measured 10 cubits, both cherubim and the same measure and the same form. The height of one cherub was 10 cubits, and so was that of the other cherub. He put the cherubim in the innermost part of the house, and the wings of the cherubim were spread out so that a wing of one touched the one wall, and a wing of the other cherub touched the other wall. Their other wings touched each other in the middle of the house, and he overlaid the cherubim with gold. Around all the walls of the house, he carved engraved figures of cherubim and palm trees and open flowers in the inner and outer rooms. The floor of the house he overlaid with gold in the inner and outer rooms. For the entrance to the inner sanctuary, he made doors of olive wood. The lintel and the doorposts were 5-sided. He covered the two doors of olive wood with carvings of cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers. He overlaid them with gold and spread gold on the cherubim and on the palm trees. So, also he made for the entrance to the nave doorposts of olive wood in the form of a square, and two doors of cypress wood. The two leaves of the one door were folding, and the two leaves of the other door were folding. On them he carved cherubim and palm trees and open flowers, and he overlaid them with gold evenly applied on the carved work. He built the inner court with 3 courses of cut stone and 1 course of cedar beams. In the 4th year, the foundation of the house of the Lord was laid, in the month of Ziv. And in the 11th year, in the month of Bul, which is the 8th month, the house was finished in all its parts, and according to all its specifications. Let me read that part over. Let me see. And in the 11th year, in the month of Bul, which is the 8th month, the house was finished in all its parts, and according to all its specifications. He was 7 years in building it. All right, so that was 1 Kings chapter 6. We are now going to read the Bible study for 1 Kings chapter 6. I got all this stuff on my table. I just took all the stuff from under the kitchen sink, because there's like a leak under the kitchen sink. I went under the kitchen sink today and there was like a puddle of water. And but I wound up like touching this pipe and I felt that it was wet, and then I like cut the water on and I saw that the pipe is leaking. So we just got a new dishwasher installed, and so now it seems there is a sound in the garbage disposal. So I'm thinking that has something to do with the leak from the pipe. It's something from this garbage disposal, even though there's nothing in the garbage disposal when we fill in there. So I don't know, but we'll have to call a plumber tomorrow now. But I just took everything from under the sink and wiped it out and stuff. But and wiped off the stuff that was under there and just sat it on the table. So I got stuff like all around me. So I have like this little space that I'm using. But this is my area that I read. So, okay, anyways. Let me get this. Okay, 1 Kings chapter 6 Bible study. In what year of Solomon's reign did he begin building the temple? Solomon began building the temple in his 4th year as king. How large was the temple? The temple was 60 cubits long by 20 cubits wide and 30 cubits high, approximately 90 by 30 by 45 feet. In what year of Solomon's reign did he complete the temple? Solomon completed the temple in his 11th year. All right, so that was 1 Kings chapter 6. We're now going back to the Old Testament and we're reading 1 Kings chapter 7, and then we'll do the Bible study for 1 Kings chapter 7. Okay, this is a little long. 1 Kings chapter 7. I guess not really, but it's longer. But we read through them fast, so it's okay. Okay, 1 Kings chapter 7. Solomon builds his palace. Solomon was building his own house 13 years, and he finished his entire house. He built the house of the forest of Lebanon. He built the house of the forest of Lebanon. Its length was 100 cubits, and its breadth 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. And it was built on 4 rows of cedar pillars, with cedar beams on the pillars. And it was covered with cedar above the chambers that were on the 45 pillars, 15 in each row. There were window frames in 3 rows, and window opposite window. Oh, yeah, let me read that. There were window frames in 3 rows, and window opposite window in 3 tiers. All the doorways and windows had square frames, and window was opposite window in 3 tiers. And he made the hall of pillars. Its length was 50 cubits, and its breadth 30 cubits. Excuse me. There was a porch in front with pillars, and a canopy in front of them. And he made the hall of the throne where he was to pronounce judgment, even the hall of judgment. It was finished with cedar from floor to rafters. His own house, where he was to dwell in the other court back of the hall, was of like workmanship. Solomon also made a house like this hall for Pharaoh's daughter, whom he had taken in marriage. All these were made of costly stones cut according to measure, sawed with saws, back and front, even from the foundation to the coping, and from the outside to the great court. The foundation was of costly stones, huge stones, stones of 8 and 10 cubits, and above were costly stones, cut according to measurement, and cedar. The great court had 3 courses of cut stone all around, and a course of cedar beams. So had the inner court of the house of the Lord and the vestibule of the house. The temple furnishings. And King Solomon sent and brought Hiram from Tyre. He was the son of a widow of the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a man of Tyre, a worker in bronze. And he was full of wisdom, understanding, and skill for making any work in bronze. He came to King Solomon and did all his work. He cast 2 pillars of bronze. 18 cubits was the height of 1 pillar, and a line of 12 cubits measured in circumference. It was hollow, and its thickness was 4 fingers. The second pillar was the same. He also made 2 capitals of cast bronze to set on the tops of the pillars. The height of the one capital was 5 cubits, and the height of the other capital was 5 cubits. There were lattices of checker work with wreaths of chain work for the capitals on the tops of the pillars. A lattice for the one capital and a lattice for the other capital. Likewise, he made pomegranates in 2 rows around the one lattice work to cover the capital that was on the top of the pillar. And he did the same with the other capital. I think that's how you pronounce this word. The last time I saw this word in some other book of the Bible that we read in this testament, like in the Old Testament, I wound up pronouncing the word like my name because it looks it looks like it could be like pronounced like my name. My name is Latisse, but it's spelled differently than this. But the last time I'm like, oh, my name is in the Bible. So funny. But I don't think it's pronounced like Latisse. I think it's lattice. So I'm not sure. I have to look this word up and see exactly how you pronounce this word, if it's lattice or lattice. But yeah, so in some other book I did pronounce it lattice, but it's showing up again, and I think it may be lattice. So I'm just gonna say lattice. Okay, so but I'm gonna look the word up today. Okay, so let's see where I were. Okay, so likewise, he made pomegranates in 2 rows around the one lattice work to cover the capital that was on the top of the pillar. And he did the same with the other capital. Now, the capitals that were on the tops of the pillars in the vestibule were of lily work, 4 cubits. The capitals were on the 2 pillars and also above the round projection which was beside the lattice work. There were 200 pomegranates in 2 rows all around, and so with the other capital. He set up the pillars at the vestibule of the temple. He set up the pillar on the south and called its name Jachin. And he set up the pillar on the north and called its name Boaz. And on the tops of the pillars was lily work. Thus the work of the pillars was finished. Then he made the sea of cast metal. It was round, 10 cubits from brim to brim, and 5 cubits high, and a line of 30 cubits measured its circumference. Under its brim were gourds for 10 cubits, compassing the sea all around. The gourds were in 2 rows cast with it when it was cast. It stood on 12 oxen, 3 facing north, 3 facing west, 3 facing south, and 3 facing east. The sea was set on them, and all their rear parts were inward. Its thickness was a hand breadth, and its brim was made like the brim of a cup, like the flower of a lily. It held 2,000 baths. He also made the 10 stands of bronze. Each stand was 4 cubits long, 4 cubits wide, and 3 cubits high. This was the construction of the stands. They had panels, and the panels were set in the frames. And on the panels that were set in the frames were lions, oxen, and cherubim. On the frames, both above and below the lions and oxen, there were wreaths of beveled work. Moreover, each stand had 4 bronze wheels and axles of bronze, and at the 4 corners were supports for a basin. The supports were cast with wreaths at the side of each. Its opening was within a crown that projected upward 1 cubit. Its opening was round as a pedestal is made, a cubit and a half deep. At its opening there were carvings, and its panels were square, not round. And the 4 wheels were underneath the panels. The axles of the wheels were of one piece with the stands, and the height of a wheel was a cubit and a half. The wheels were made like a chariot wheel, their axles, their rims, their spokes, and their hubs were all cast. There were 4 supports at the 4 corners of each stand. The supports were of one piece with the stands. And on the top of the stand there was a round band half a cubit high. And on the top of the stand its stays and its panels were of one piece with it. And on the surfaces of its stays and on its panels, he carved cherubim, lions, and palm trees according to the space of each, with wreaths all around. After this manner, he made the 10 stands. All of them were cast alike, of the same measure and the same form. And he made 10 basins of bronze. Each basin held 40 baths. Each basin measured 4 cubits, and there was a basin for each of the 10 stands. And he set the stands 5 on the south side of the house and 5 on the north side of the house. And he set the sea at the southeast corner of the house. Hiram also made the pots, the shovels, and the basins. So Hiram finished all the work that he did for King Solomon on the house of the Lord. The 2 pillars, the 2 bowls of the capitals that were on the tops of the pillars, and the 2 lattice works to cover the 2 bowls of the capitals that were on the tops of the pillars, and the 400 pomegranates for the 2 lattice works, 2 rows of pomegranates for each lattice work to cover the 2 bowls of the capitals that were on the pillars. The 10 stands and the 10 basins on the stands, and the 1 sea and the 12 oxen underneath the sea. Now, the pots, the shovels, and the basins, all these vessels in the house of the Lord, which Hiram made for King Solomon, were of burnished bronze. In the plain of the Jordan, the king cast them in the clay ground between Succoth and Zarethan. And Solomon left all the vessels unweighed because there were so many of them. The weight of the bronze was not the weight of the bronze was not ascertained. So Solomon made all the vessels that were in the house of the Lord: the golden altar, the golden table for the bread of the presence, the lampstands of pure gold, 5 on the south side and 5 on the north, before the inner sanctuary, the flowers, the lamps, and the tongs of gold, the cups, snuffers, basins, dishes for incense, and fire pans of pure gold, and the sockets of gold for the doors of the innermost part of the house, the most holy place, and for the doors of the nave of the temple. Thus all the work that King Solomon did on the house of the Lord was finished. And Solomon brought in the things that David his father had dedicated, the silver, the gold, and the vessels, and stored them in the treasuries of the house of the Lord. All right, so that was 1 Kings chapter 7. We are now going to do the Bible study for 1 Kings chapter 7. One Kings chapter 7 Bible study. One Kings chapter 7 Bible study. How many years did it take to build Solomon's house? It took 13 years to build Solomon's house. Who did all the bronze work for Solomon's buildings? Hiram, the son of a widow of the tribe of Naphtali, did all the bronze work. How many lampstands of gold were constructed for the temple? 10 lampstands were made for the temple. All right, so that was the Bible study for 1 Kings chapter 7. We're now going on over to the New Testament, and we're going to finish Luke chapter 23 by reading verse 26 through 56, and then we'll do the Bible study for Luke chapter 23, and then we'll be done for today. Okay, so yesterday we left off in Luke at verse 25. Okay, so yeah, we're picking up here, Luke chapter 23, verse 26. Okay, the crucifixion. And as they led him away, they seized one of Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, and laid on him the cross to carry it behind Jesus. And there followed him a great multitude of the people and of women who were mourning and lamenting for him. But turning to them, Jesus said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming when they will say, Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed. Then they will begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, cover us. For if they do these things when the wood is green, what will happen when it is dry?" Two others who were criminals were led away to be put to death with him. And when they came to the place that is called the Skull, there they crucified him, and the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. And Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And they cast lots to divide his garments. And the people stood by, watching. But the rulers scoffed at him, saying, "He saved others, let him save himself, if he is the Christ of God, his chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine, and saying, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." There was also an inscription over him, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who were hanged railed at him, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we are receiving the due reward of our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." And he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And he said to him, "Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." The death of Jesus. It was now about the 6th hour, and there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour, while the sun's light failed, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Then Jesus, calling out with a loud voice, said, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And having said this, he breathed his last. Now, when the centurion saw what had taken place, he praised God, saying, "Certainly this man was innocent." And all the crowds that had assembled for his spectacle, when they saw what had taken place, returned home beating their breasts. And all his acquaintances and the women who had followed him from Galilee stood at a distance watching these things. Jesus is buried. Now, there was a man named Joseph from the Jewish town of Arimathea. He was a member of the council, a good and righteous man who had not consented to their decision and action, and he was looking for the kingdom of God. This man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then he took it down and wrapped it in a linen shroud and laid him in a tomb cut in stone where no one had yet where no one had ever yet been laid. It was the day of preparation, and the Sabbath was beginning. The women who had come with him from Galilee followed and saw the tomb and how his body was laid. Then they returned and prepared spices and ointments. On the Sabbath, they rested according to the commandment. All right, so that was Luke chapter 23, verse 26 through verse 56. We're now going to do the Bible study for Luke chapter 23, and then we'll be done for today. Okay. Luke chapter 23 Bible study. To whom did the chief priests and scribes send Jesus? The chief priest brought Jesus to Pilate. To whom did he send Jesus? Pilate sent Jesus to Herod. Where did Jesus end up last? Herod sends Jesus back to Pilate. Who was released according to custom instead of Jesus? Barabbas, a murderer, was released instead of Jesus. Who carried Jesus' cross part of the way for him? Simon, a Cyrenian, helped carry the cross of Jesus. Why would the people weep for their children? In the near future, the Romans would destroy the temple and kill men, women, and children. It would be better for their women to never have borne their children. Who is the green wood? Jesus is the green wood. If the people reject and crucify the Messiah while he is in their presence, what will they do when he is gone? What happened in the middle of the day? There was darkness over all the land from the 6th to the 9th hour. What happened to the veil in the temple? The veil was torn in 2 pieces. How many days did Jesus suffer and then die? Jesus suffered and died within 1 day. He suffered from the night before preparation day through early morning and then was crucified, dying on preparation day. All right, so that was Luke chapter 23 Bible study, and we're now done for today. A quick recap of what we did today. From the Old Testament, we read from the Old Testament, we read 1 Kings chapters, we read 1 Kings chapter 6 and chapter 7, and then we did the Bible study for 1 Kings chapter 6 and 7 from the Old Testament. And then we went on over to the New Testament and we finished Luke chapter 23, which we started yesterday, so we just finished it today, Luke chapter 23, by reading verse 26 through verse 56, and then we just did the Bible study for the entire Luke chapter 23. So we are done for today. I love you guys. God loves you. You matter. You're worthy. You're valuable. You're important. You are enough. We're doing this. We're champions in Jesus Christ. And I love you guys. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy your night.